Good evening. How is everybody today? What's that audio playing in the background? All right, we're going to watch some stuff today. Going to watch the Prime Minister get interviewed. His last pitch to voters. Then we're going to watch the Gunt have a meltdown. But first, let's watch our Prime Minister tackle a small child.
What's happening?
Great. All right, let's watch the soon-to-be mercifully gone Lee Sales fillet our Prime Minister.
Welcome to the program.
Metaphorically.
The Prime Minister enters the final week of the election campaign with the coalition behind in the polls and pledging to remake himself if re-elected. Shortly,
Sure
I'll speak to Scott Morrison in one of his most important interviews of the campaign. But first, here's Chief Political Correspondent Laura Tingle.
Laura Tingle's the best.
What Australians have needed from me going through this pandemic has been strength and resilience. Now, I admit that hasn't enabled Australians to see a lot of other gears in the way I work. I know Australians know that I can be a bit of a bulldozer when it comes to issues, and I suspect you guys know that too.
Someone's seen some polling that says he's very, very, very
For a
unpopular.
Prime Minister who prides himself as one who is not for turning, Friday was a significant day. There was the concession that he could, indeed would, change. He talked of being a bit of a bulldozer in terms of his approach to the pandemic and to matters of national security. But staring at a likely election defeat, his problem is that polling suggests voters, and particularly female voters, don't see him so much as a bulldozer, but as a bully.
He's a typical abuser.
Mr. Speaker, she can go.
I think it's one of the worst acts of bullying I've ever witnessed.
I describe him as like a menacing, controlling wallpaper.
Lacking the moral compass and having no conscience.
A bulldozer wrecks things. A bulldozer knocks things over. I'm
Yes.
a builder. That's what I am.
I know there are things that are going to have to change with the way I do things, because we're moving into a different time. I'll need some more time and training.
Moving into a different time.
The signs on
Yes.
Friday were of a
Jesus
political
Christ.
party and a government in full-scale panic mode, throwing out the disciplined playbook, but clearing the way for the campaign launch yesterday.
I had one focus as your Prime Minister: save the country. And we did. And we did.
The Prime Minister also tried to smooth over the more lethal charges made by the opposition, and which show up all the time in voter comments. That Morrison has been too often missing in action.
God, he looks like a bulldog.
Notoriously holidaying in Hawaii while Australia burned, and that he too often blames others when things go wrong.
Not my job, mate.
Criticising,
I don't hold a hose.
just work feverishly to turn it around and make up the ground.
The Prime Minister celebrated the largest economic and public health response in Australia's history. But that overlooked controversies over the oversight of nursing homes, the vaccine rollout, the availability of rapid antigen tests, pressure on states to open their borders, and the seemingly constant need to bring in Defence forces to fill the gaps in our health and aged care systems exposed by the pandemic.
We
I wonder why that might be.
And not
Might have been
everything went to
9
plan.
years of
Yesterday,
underfunding.
the Prime Minister was focused instead on the economic bounce back from the pandemic.
Back in March 2020, our nation was gripped by fear and uncertainty. We stood on the edge of an abyss.
And now, he says, we are standing on a much less precarious edge.
We stand on the edge of a new era of opportunity. Better days are now ahead.
The central pledges made yesterday to deliver those better days concerned housing affordability. Most significantly, there was
this
a pledge
brain
to
fart.
let first home buyers get early access to their superannuation. The policy has not been universally welcomed, with claims that it would have a negative impact on both the housing market and on superannuation. According to many economists, and even Superannuation Minister Jane Hume, the policy will fuel further house price rises.
And no shit, when I hand everybody $50,000 worth of their own retirement savings to buy a house, yeah.
But we have seen the larger markets like Sydney and Melbourne starting to edge into the early phase of a downturn. If you start to provide an easier way for people to get into the marketplace, at least in raising a deposit, then clearly that's going to have some upside to housing demand.
This is like throwing kerosene on a bonfire. The expectation is that it would increase the cost of a home here in Sydney by...
Just quickly. So their plan is to let you take up to 50 grand of your super out of your super and use it as to help you in your down payment on a house. Yeah, that sounds great. As a homeowner, I think it's fantastic. My house is going to go up by at least $50,000. But more shockingly, they want you to pay it back. They want you to pay it back into your super when you sell the house. What? And they want you to pay it back plus any capital gain you've made. It's mind-boggling. If you ever sell your house, you're going to have a tax bill. And they want the ATO to manage this shit. Never have I seen a policy made so poorly and clearly on the run. It's just terrible.
by $134,000.
Really sums up this government.
There is a considerable wedge in this announcement. Raiding superannuation is one issue which Labor, which sees itself as the builder and defender of the super system, will not.
It sees it as that because they literally did that.
Copy. And the policy is designed to contrast with Labor's plan, which sees a government subsidy to low-income households paid back in the form of a share of the capital gain when the property is sold. But the political threshold question is whether the policy actually would make much difference to many people. The average superannuation balance of the 30 to 40-year-old age bracket that is likely to benefit from the government scheme is $80,000, meaning that, at best, with a cap of a 40% drawdown, they would only be able to get $32,000 towards their house purchase. There are two reasons why 5 years ago giving big tax concessions to superannuation was regarded as good public policy. The first was a personal good, a reward for locking money away and ensuring individuals would have a decent retirement income. The second was a public good.
Superannuation is taxed at 15%,
Retirement savings,
as opposed to whatever your
ballooning
regular
age
rate is.
pensions bill would not be overwhelming. But Labor links all issues back to voters' dislike of Scott Morrison and says this late policy announcement, after the coalition has been in office for a decade, is a product of political desperation.
I think a lot of Australians will form the view over the next few days and on Saturday that it's time to fire the liar.
I'm seeking a second term because I'm just warming up.
Oh, that's a good line. Fire the liar. From the Shire.
The Prime Minister's in Cairns this evening. Prime Minister, thank you very much for your time.
Happy, Lee. Happy to.
How do you
Sounds like
campaign
maybe a couple of cans deep.
effectively when even you are admitting that the biggest drag on the government's re-election chance is yourself?
Because we've got the economic plan, Lee, that I know can take Australia into the future and seize the opportunities there. I know that's the case. I know our economic plan is working because Australians are working. We've been through one of the most difficult times the country has seen in generations, since the Great Depression, and we've been able to come through, getting unemployment down, bringing the economy through, and now we are setting up for the opportunities ahead, investing in the skills, investing in the infrastructure, getting taxes down, businesses investing in their equipment to set themselves up for the opportunity. That opportunity's there, and our economic plan can achieve that, which means we can pay for Medicare, we can pay for the aged care reforms, we can pay for the defence forces that we need.
Just let him talk. Like, Jesus Christ, it's an interview. There's supposed to be a back and forward.
Jobs shortly in detail, but just firstly, how did you conclude that the thing that people don't like about you is that you're a bulldozer?
Well, I'm just being honest, Lee. I mean, I can be. And during the last
Honest,
3
yes,
years,
I'm sure,
frankly, at
occasionally.
other times in the various jobs that I've had, that has been very necessary. I mean, Australia has been able to come through this pandemic in a situation where our economy is stronger than all of the G7 countries. We've got one of the lowest death rates in the world, and that didn't happen by accident. It required great will, great determination, tremendous strength, and be able to push through. Now, we're going into a new period now.
Sorry, Prime Minister, just to pick up though. I'm just wondering though why you think that any of that is the kind of thing that upsets people, because if you look at what the focus groups are saying, isn't the feedback more that people don't like what they perceive, rightly or wrongly, as you ducking responsibility, blame shifting, being slippery with the truth, being slow to act when required?
Well, they're Labor's criticisms, and that's not what I get. What I get is people really just want to see me be more inclusive in terms of how I go forward, and I think that's the challenge going forward, and that's what we want to do. During the course of a crisis and a pandemic, you've got to move fast, you've got to be decisive, and that means sometimes you can't take everybody with you, and you don't always get everything right either.
You've got to actually be there, you
dropkick. Then we've got the opportunity to bring people forward on that plan, and it's a plan that I know is working, and that's the key, because the plan depends on knowing what you're talking about on the economy, having the experience, and to apply the lessons of these last difficult years to ensure we realise those opportunities in the future so Australians can realise their aspirations, like owning a home.
You've spoken about things that you would do differently. What would you have done differently, for example, when it came to the way your government used community sports grants as a slush fund to channel money to marginal seats?
Well, I completely reject that, Lee.
Well, that was the finding of the Australian National Audit Office.
Literally did that.
I'm sorry, every place I've gone where we've continued to provide support for local clubs, these clubs matter in these communities.
Yeah, but
I don't think...
Yeah, but only in marginal electorates or coalition electorates,
public servants sitting in Canberra have a better idea about what people need in their communities than their members of parliament who work in those communities every day.
Sport Australia might, and the National Audit Office found that half of the successful projects weren't the ones recommended by Sport Australia, they were ones that went to marginal seats.
Well, and I'm sorry, politicians, elected leaders, ministers ultimately make decisions because we're the ones who are accountable to the public, not public servants, not Sport Australia. I mean, I was at the Beauty Point.
Then why do my taxes pay for Sport Australia?
The other day. That's the main community hall in the entire community. It's a bowls club. They needed help to ensure that they could continue. We're supporting them. Now, someone in Canberra mightn't understand how important that is, but I can tell you what they do, and Bridget Archer does, and I do, And that's why we support it. So I just don't buy into this narrative that is put to us. Politicians, members of parliament, are part of their local community. They know what their community needs. We go to an election. We are very clear about what we plan to do and the commitments we make. And then we follow through and we implement them.
Like car parks they don't build.
Government. And in a term that long, a government has a record of things that it's initiated and a record of things unexpected to which it's had to react. So let's start with what you've initiated. You've racked up trillions of dollars in debt. What does Australia have to show for it that's a lasting change for the better?
Fuck and all.
Snowy Hydro. We're building the Sydney Western Sydney Airport. We're building the Inland Rail. We've completed the duplication of the Pacific Highway. We've boosted the Bruce. But importantly, we have an economy today on the other side of a pandemic because of the single largest economic intervention in Australia's history. Before we went into the into the pandemic, we actually balanced the budget. It took us 6 years to get there.
You didn't.
And we did it. Not by cutting.
All you did was announce that in 4 years you will have balanced the budget, and you pretended that that was balancing the fucking budget. That's not that's not how that fucking works. I don't get to say my house is paid off in 20 years.
Services. We did it by growing the economy. Now that meant we had deficits for those years, and those deficits added to the debt. But are you suggesting we should have been cutting hospitals and schools and things like that to get there? We said we wouldn't do that. We said we would balance the budget by growing the economy. Now, I was Treasurer for 3 of those years, and we went into the pandemic. We balanced the budget, which meant we could respond with JobKeeper, the cash flow boost, the tax incentives, the COVID supplements, all of these things, and record spending on health to get Australia through the biggest crisis we'd faced in 70 years.
I saw none of this.
We have a country today which is strong.
As you mentioned, you were clawing back that debt over a period of time, and you were elected in 2013 on that promise, as you would remember. Now you're campaigning for re-election with record debt, and we're not hearing a word about a plan to pay it back.
Well, it's the same plan. By growing your economy,
re-elect us.
With your
and then don't worry about it.
The way you reduce the deficit, the budget sets out over the forward estimates and over the medium term. See, But Lee, as you balance the budget over the years, you're bringing the deficits down as a share of the economy, and that means you're getting the budget back to a position of structural and ultimately absolute balance. Now, this is not something new. We've done this before. It took us 6 years after the Labor period
but the scale of the debt now
is
the earlier debt pales into comparison.
Yeah, that's right. Instead of
why you actually need a government that knows.
Instead of, 50% of GDP, where I think we're at 100%. Maybe we're like the US and Japan, we're at like 110%.
How to do this. We've done it before. We've cleaned up and dealt with these sorts of situations before. Now, I don't think anyone would contend that the investments that we had to make during the pandemic were unnecessary. And that's why that debt is what it is. It saved the country, Lee. It saved jobs. It saved businesses.
That is such a bunch of bullshit.
Themselves actually
the debt was already tripled by the time fucking COVID came.
Saved. The investments we made in mental health saved lives, as did the investments we made in people's physical health for COVID. Saving the country, I thought, was worth the investment.
On your plan to allow people to dip into their superannuation to buy housing, your own superannuation minister, Jane Hume, today said that it would drive housing prices up short term. What's the point of a policy that makes already insane housing prices even worse?
Well, the key thing that impacts housing prices is the supply of housing, and what Jane was referring to was in isolation when you take all of our housing policies together, in particular the downsizing policy. Now, the downsizing policy actually gets more housing stock into the market. I mean, our housing market each year, I think, is...
How the fuck? So, say I want to downsize. My house gets sold. How does that increase the stock of housing? I sell my house and live in my fucking car. I have to buy a house too. The supply stays the fucking same. That doesn't make any fucking sense.
Some $687 billion. This measure affects up to about 1% of it. And so the suggestion this will have any sort of significant impact here, I just don't think bears up to scrutiny.
Yeah, no, it's not going to have any significant impact. It's going to be fucking pointless.
To have control over their own money to help them buy a home, so when they go into their retirement they'll be better off, and when they buy that home they'll have lower mortgage.
That's right. I told the bank I've pledged to pay off my house, so my house is basically paid off now.
That's how you help people
that
with
works.
cost of living. You let them use their own money. You don't lock it away from them where someone else is in control of it.
But I could
they
read
should be in control of it. It's theirs.
But I could read you a long list of quotes from coalition luminaries who've previously said that allowing people to access their retirement savings to buy a house is a bad idea.
This is simply the Liberals fucking hate superannuation. They want you to not have any retirement income except the age pension, which they would rather not have at all. They would rather you be destitute. Or just die. Die before 62, so they don't, or 67. So they don't have to pay anything.
Idea. I'm not going to read them all because I don't want to waste time, but I've got here John Howard, Peter Costello, Malcolm Turnbull, Christopher Pyne, Matthias Cormann, Peter Dutton. Why is raiding super?
Get him,
What's
Lee.
your break glass policy? Because you did it during COVID, you're doing it again now.
No. Well, those policies they're referring to are not the policy we've put forward here, Lee, because the policy we've put forward here is not that people take money out of their superannuation and never put it back. This policy actually invests it back into your superannuation so it doesn't impact on your long-term retirement savings. That's the difference. And what they were referring to was something quite different.
But what if the housing market tanks?
That's why this policy is
We know the
smart.
housing market's
Sorry?
What if the housing market tanks? We know the housing market, for example, is a bubble at the moment. What if it tanks?
Lee, what you're suggesting is owning your own home is a gamble Australians shouldn't take. I don't agree with that. I heard Penny...
Hold the fuck on. Owning your own home is not a gamble. It's about being able to.
Wong say that today. Owning your home is the most significant asset for most Australians that they will ever own. I know it's the case for Jenny and I. And I believe buying a home is the best economic decision that you can make. And it's the strongest
Which home, Scott?
thing you can do for families,
The one you live in?
communities. That's why I'm all
The other two.
on the side of those who want to buy a home. And I know for the parents of those and family members of those who are looking at their family, really, this is a tough thing. And they go to them for help as well. Well, we can't just allow that to be the case. We should be allowing people to use their own money. And that's what this does. It boosts their ultimate retirement incomes because they're investing in their own home, the best investment anyone ever makes. And it ensures they can get into that.
They can't eat their home, Scott. You're going to be... So, say I don't own a home. I take, you know, the maximum amount of super out for this scheme, 50 grand. And I buy my house. I use it as a deposit. I buy my house and I get to 67. I decide to retire and I decide to downsize. I sell the property and then I have to repay the 50 grand. If housing hasn't gone up, if when I go to retire, housing's in the fucking toilet, I'm left like, I end up with a capital loss maybe. Like, this is ridiculous. And then I still have to buy a house. More kick the can down the fucking road bullshit. You want to fix the housing crisis? Build more houses. Government's perfectly capable of investing money in housing. The UK government did it all the way up to the 80s. I'm pretty sure we used to do it. Unlock some fucking land, start building some shit. Jesus.
The housing market
Instead of
earlier,
fucking trying to destroy super every 5 minutes.
their ultimate mortgage payments.
Prime Minister,
it adds up at every
Did you just say
level.
mortgage?
You've said that this election is about one thing, jobs, and you want to create 1 million more of them. You talk to anyone at the moment in business...
1.3 million.
Government doesn't create jobs. The free market creates jobs.
Yeah.
You talk to anyone in business at the moment, large or small, and what they'll tell you is that they can't get enough workers to fill their current vacancies. They don't want more jobs, they want more workers.
That's true. This is the single biggest challenge facing the Australian economy today.
Well, aren't you going to make the problem worse? Do you make a million more jobs?
Now, that means the economy will be bigger and there'll be more people there to fill those jobs because we're investing in the skills of Australians. The jobs we're creating...
And there'll be more people who will need houses.
These are jobs where we currently have 220,000 Australians in trade training right now. That's the highest level we've ever seen, Lee, since 1963 when records began. We've invested over $7 billion this year alone in additional training places.
Sorry to interrupt. Training takes...
Sorry, interrupt.
Training takes time, right? And people are saying that they have gaps and vacancies that they can't fill right now. So what are you going to do as a federal government to help with that?
Well, just as well then, Lee, wasn't it, that during the...
Immigration. But he can't say that because he'll lose votes.
Pandemic, we did the boosting apprenticeship scheme, the commencing and the completing apprenticeship schemes. That means that we've got those 220,000 people who are doing apprentices and finishing them now. Isn't it just the exact thing we should have done with Job Trainer, which we did, a more than $1 billion program, together with the states and territories that we created over 400,000 training places, 30,000 more university places during the pandemic. We've been investing big on those skills and education.
How useful were those university places during the pandemic, eh, Scott?
Now, the immigration program will begin to build back up again, and it'll focus heavily on skills. The agricultural visa, the work we've done with the Pacific Labour Scheme. I was at a vineyard the other day and an orchard, and the workers there were from East Timor, from Timor-Leste. And we have workers coming in from many parts of the Pacific, which is helping with that program.
Can you pronounce the E in Timor-Leste?
There's no doubt about that. And I believe that investing in skills and investing in that labour force is the most important economic challenge that we have facing our economy in the short to medium term.
On wages, if you don't support wages keeping pace with inflation, isn't what you're saying to Australians that you support them taking a pay cut? Because that's the practical effect of it.
I support the Fair Work Commission making decisions on wages, taking into account all the factors that impact
independent Fair Work Commission
and whether they'll be better off. I support wage increases, Lee.
But what about my central
point there? I want people to be
there?
paid more.
What about my central point there, that if your pay doesn't match, if it doesn't go up by as much as inflation, you are effectively taking a pay cut because you've got the same money but everything costs more?
Well, let me give you an example of our record on that. 7 out of the last 8 minimum wage decisions made by Fair Work ensured that the minimum wage rose faster than inflation.
And yet real wages over your 9 years in government are down,
by 7%.
So
despite the minimum wage going up. So the McDonald's worker is better off, but everybody else saying.
Do you accept then? Do you accept
That's
then?
all right, I understand.
Do you accept then that there is a cost of living crisis?
I think McDonald's pays more than the minimum wage.
Everybody knows the war in Europe, the disruption of supply chains from the pandemic, and even the floods that we've seen that are impacting on fruit and vegetable prices. The whole world knows that there's upward pressure on inflation. I mean, inflation in Australia at 5.1%. In New Zealand, it's almost 7%. In the United States, it's 8.5%. I mean, what we're seeing in Australia is, yes, it's tough. But if you look at the performance of like countries to Australia, the economic shield that we've put in place to protect Australians from those forces and the additional things we did in this budget, whether it was halving petrol tax or additional support for pensioners or extending the tax relief and the ongoing tax relief, is there to help Australians better cope with this. The reason we did that is because we didn't want all the gains of coming through this pandemic as people get up on their feet again for them to be knocked down again. But the
Interesting to point out that the low-income tax offset expires next financial year, so this is the last financial year you'll get it.
other point I was going to make, Lee, before there was the misunderstanding, is when Labor was in power, there were 6 decisions of minimum wages. On 3 occasions, they did not go up more than the inflation rate. So they talk a big game on this, but when they were in government...
But it's not up to the government. It's up to the, as you just said, Scotty, it's up to the Fair Work Commission.
They didn't achieve what they now claim to say they can.
On climate change, do you accept that to get to net zero by 2050, Australia needs to shut down most of its coal-fired power stations by 2030?
No, I don't. No, I don't. And there will be a change that will take place in Australia around the world that will happen over time. And that's why we believe in investing in carbon capture, use and storage technologies.
So do you have a time frame in your head for
our
when
investments
do?
Do
Do you have a time frame in your head for when you think coal will in Australia?
trillions. We could grow the economy by an absolutely staggering amount if we weren't held back by retards. If we invested in green, not alone, we could turn Australia into an industrial powerhouse. The industrial powerhouse it used to be. Instead, we faff about the edges. Talk about technology. Meanwhile, we cut investment in research.
Well, not specifically, because that will be decided by those who are actually using and running those power stations based on their commercial viability. And they currently have timetables on all of those. But in some cases, those timetables are brought forward. And that's why we took action, particularly to develop the gas-fired plant up there in Kurri Kurri, to ensure that we can keep reliable energy generation in the system. Because for all the renewables to work, the intermittent renewables, the ones that rely on solar and wind, they need firmed power, as it's called, or reliable power, to support them to make the whole grid work so you don't have variability problems. And so our plan does that. Our plan ensures that the transmission investments that we're putting into the grid are based on when it is needed and where it is needed. Labor's plan puts $20 billion of investment that goes beyond that, which can only force up electricity prices. So our emissions plan, which has already seen emissions fall by around 20%, far more than Canada, far more than New Zealand,
much better.
Japan. All of these countries, we are performing better. We've got we have the highest rooftop solar rates in the world. Australians are doing it. We're doing it. We have a plan to get to net zero by 2050 based on the technology that
stop moving.
not only solve the problem in Australia, but around the world, and particularly in our region, and in
Stop moving, Scott.
like Indonesia and India, where we've developed these partnerships to develop things like hydrogen technology as well as carbon capture and storage. That's how you deal with climate change, a long-term technology plan.
I said earlier that for a 9-year government, there's a record of what you've instigated and there's a record of what you've had to react to. So shifting to what you've had to react to, let me read you a quote from Anthony Albanese. They always react too little, too late, whether it's the bushfire crisis,
correct,
whether it's responding to victims of floods, or whether it's ordering enough vaccines. Those three examples are indisputable, aren't they?
They're the comments of an armchair critic who only ever had to say anything about something that happened after it happened.
An armchair critic.
Guess what the opposition leader is supposed to do?
Three examples. The government was late to respond.
Criticise the fucking government.
Well, I have to disagree on a couple of points there.
Well, I have to disagree.
$9 billion straight in there to support the victims of bushfires. On floods, the same has been the case. We had people winching people off roofs within hours of floods hitting. And I think those who have been directly involved in the delivery of that support, whether it was our Centrelink officers who were there providing emergency cash assistance and getting on the ground, our Defence Force personnel,
but Prime Minister, everyone's
the
seen
HMAs
the
Adelaide that went to
people. You can't honestly say that there was enough on the ground.
I'm aware
at the
of the
time.
narrative. Well,
it's the narrative, is it, Scott? Fuck off.
I mean, there are not Defence Force personnel sitting in every single town in the country.
No, but
that's not how it works.
We did, Prime Minister,
Sorry,
we did have that Royal Commission after the bushfires, and Australians were assured that we'd never seen a situation. We were sure,
and then ignored it.
Situation again where people were left in such dire need, and then we had those floods in New South Wales this year. Is that
the federal government's $2 billion fund for bushfire relief to recover from our horror 2020 bushfire season? We've spent a grand total of fuck and all.
that the kind of performance that deserves another 3 years?
Well, that is not what the Royal Commission found. I commissioned the Royal Commission, and the government, state and federal and local for that matter, moved as swiftly and as promptly as we possibly could in a flood that was without precedent in this country, estimates of some 500 years. But on the vaccine program, you've mentioned that. We took decisions in August of 2020 to ensure that we manufactured vaccines in Australia. Now, we had challenges in the early phase of the vaccine rollout. I've openly admitted that.
AstraZeneca only.
What happens when you have challenges and setbacks in a pandemic? You don't get everything right, and where it isn't going to plan, you change the plan, you get back on top of it. General Fulham was appointed, the vaccine program was turned around, we were able to get access to the vaccines. And
appointing generals fixes everything.
And others, and we ended up having one of the highest vaccination rates in the world. My point is, it's easy to make criticisms, Lee, in the middle of a pandemic.
Aussies are good at just falling into line.
But when you're there taking the country through all of that and the decisions that have to be made every single day, when you step back and you look at what Australians have been able to achieve over these last 2 years, I think fair-minded people will see that Australia has compared very well to other countries. And it didn't happen by accident. We did it all together.
On foreign policy, the government was apparently blindsided by the China-Solomon Islands security deal. And your reaction was to say that China attempting to build a naval base there would be a red line and that you wouldn't allow it. What does that mean? How would you not allow this red line to be...
Red lines are great. Ask Obama about red lines.
The Australian government was not blindsided. We were aware of the efforts being made by the Chinese government to do exactly that.
But
and we've been taking action.
China didn't own me.
No, well, you said we'd been blindsided, Lee, and I'm just saying that
actually
wasn't the case, and I said that at the time because, I mean, this is a very serious issue, and it is one we've been working on and working with the family of nations in the Pacific since before I became the Prime Minister, but I took it to a whole nother level.
So
I mean,
how
after the last election,
red line?
the first place I went to was the Solomon Islands.
So
and
what
one
about
of the things
red
we
line?
change with,
Was that on the way to Hawaii?
the way you deal with countries in the Pacific had to change. Australia had a reputation of stomping around and treating the Pacific like they were some sort of colonial outpost. That was the feedback that I was getting from leaders when I...
So, the Pacific says to you, please, stop treating us like colonies. Stop stomping around like you're a bully and like you're the boss. And what do? Yeah, thanks for that feedback, mate. I'm going to draw a red line here. Don't go past it. Sounds consistent.
And I've sought to turn that around. And frankly, in relation to where Prime Minister Sogavare is, I mean, he has talking about his engagement with Australia over a very long time. And so in terms of red lines,
props for having memorised that
name. Very clear that is not a situation that we think is in the Solomon Islands' interest.
Yeah, but you said
in the
you
broader
wouldn't allow
Pacific's
it
interest,
to be crossed.
or Australia's.
What does it
and
mean?
the United States have said the same thing.
Yeah, but what does it mean?
And so we will work constructively with our partners to ensure that never occurs.
But
I'm not
talk tough and do nothing.
On those actions, Lee. I don't think that would be a wise thing to do. But governments and countries have to be very clear about what we understand to be acceptable and unacceptable circumstances, both in the regional security interests and the national security interests. And we'll work with partners to avoid that outcome. And the Prime Minister
this guy's
very clear in the Solomon.
This guy could give Ben Shapiro lessons in the Gish
It's
Gallop.
not something that he would support, or indeed the people of the Solomon Islands would support.
I'm curious for your insights. Why do you think that previously
Gallop?
blue ribbon Liberal seats, the kind that usually barely warrant a glance during an election campaign, are vulnerable to independence?
Well, I'd simply say
Watch him call them so-called independents.
In those seats will only
he just did. He fucking just did.
No, that's not the question.
And
the
a
question is,
parliament of
why do you
chaos.
think they're vulnerable for the first?
Well, I'd simply say that supporting independents in those seats will only produce a parliament of chaos.
No, that's not the question.
And
The
a
question
parliament
is,
of
why do you
chaos.
think they're vulnerable for the first time?
Well, I'd say that our members have...
Okay, yeah, so it is a Gish Gallop.
It
sounds wrong.
Places, I suppose, are less vulnerable to the impacts of the economy than, say, many of the places I've been in this campaign. Where I was today, up there in the seat of Blair and out in parts of regional Australia and the broader suburbs of the country. I mean, they are places that cannot afford the sort of risk that comes with a Labor Party and a leader that just is a bit loose on the economy. They will pay the price for that. And I think it's important that perhaps some parts of our country may feel they're a bit more insulated from the impacts of that and maybe focusing on other issues. But I do know this: you can't address climate change and invest in the technology you need to deal with climate change unless you have a strong economy. You can't invest in mental health support or dealing with the issues involving violence against women and put $2.5 billion into those programs.
Shout out to the ladies.
Advanced manufacturing or ensure that the
Must have spoke to Jenny.
benefit scheme can have 2,900 new or amended listings on it. You can't do that without a strong economy. And you can never take that for granted, and that's the point I'd make in those seats. Do not take our strong economy for granted, and please do not give us a parliament that would be one of chaos that would only weaken Australia and make it harder for Australians.
Looking ahead to Sunday, if the coalition has lost, can we take it as a given that you'll be standing down as leader?
Oh, Lee, I don't speculate on things like that.
Oh,
and
come
I don't
on,
think that's fair.
it's in a few days' time. You must be thinking
the only
about
person
it.
The only person who's announced their retirement is you, Lee, and I wish you very well in your retirement.
No,
and
but
I commend you on the great job you've done over a long time.
No, but Prime Minister, come on.
Being mostly a sycophant for 9 years. And
Over the course of my career.
I'm sure that's right, but you must be Prime Minister thinking about what happens if you lose. Can we take it as a given that you would be standing down in that scenario? No, we can't take it as a given.
That is not something I'm contemplating, because I'm not contemplating on that being the scenario.
OK, what if there was a hung parliament, Prime Minister? Sorry, can I just... Prime Minister...
I'm not getting into the scenario games, Lee,
Prime
because
Minister,
right now I'm focused on one thing. I'm focused on one thing, and that's ensuring that our government continues, because we have the economic plan.
So there you go. Everybody who's a resident of the division of Cook, for the love of God, don't vote for Scott Morrison, because we're never getting rid of him otherwise.
But if you want that government to continue, if you want that government to continue, let's say...
Then we need to win majority of seats at this election.
Well, exactly, and what that might involve...
I'll tell you exactly what's going to happen. If the government loses, it'll be 3 weeks, and Scotty will announce that he's decided to retire from politics, from the rough and tumble. He'll spend the 3 weeks finding a cushy job in a consulting firm, and he'll retire to spend more time with Jen and the girls. Mark my words.
Involved in the eventuality of a hung parliament is negotiating with independents and minor parties. Would you be prepared to stand aside to give a new leader a fresh slate and chance to negotiate with those people to keep the coalition in government?
No, I'm not speculating on these scenarios, Lee, because my scenario, the scenario that my team is working for, is
Jesus is going to come down from the clouds
that has to negotiate for
and reward his prosperity doctrine
do that, Lee,
and stuff the ballot boxes full of votes for Scott.
Stronger position we are today, we'd be in a weaker position.
If you
People
lose,
would be worse off,
if you lose,
and I want to avoid that.
If you lose the election, who will you blame?
Well, I would always accept the result of an election, because I trust my fellow Australians. And that issue becomes immaterial.
Okay.
A decision will be made on this Saturday, and it's an important decision about we want a stronger economy or a weaker one.
And again, most people will make their decision
more uncertainty
waiting to go into the polling booth.
And a government that you know with a clear plan, and an opposition and a Labor leader that you don't. These are the choices for Australia. And I'll tell you one thing, the only way Australians are going to be able to get access to their superannuation to buy their own home is if they vote Liberal and National, because the Labor Party will never do it.
Yes, because superannuation is important.
Get access to it so you can buy your own home.
There is no busier person than a party leader on an election campaign, so thank you, Prime Minister, for making time to speak to us.
Thanks a lot, Lee. It was good to talk with you.
Thank you. That's the program for tonight. Before we go, tomorrow on 7:30...
That was a slog.
2 special guest reports on key election issues. The first from Alan Kohler as housing...
Nobody cares, Lee. Let's watch Scott tackle a kid again. I can't remember if he's done this before or if he's just having... No, he did. Yes, he manhandled a kid the last election. That was great. That was fucking hilarious. That's his Boris Johnson moment. All right. So, let's do this. Let's watch get some stuff lined up here. And there we go. That's better. Strangely an improvement, though it's not hard to improve on the gunt. All right, let's see the gunt meltdown.
Kiranu, pull up the Pillstream clip where Ralph tells his mom to hitchhike in the summer heat to her dialysis appointment. Really? That's kind of funny.
Yeah, well.
And there it is. That's all it took. That's all it took. A little giggle.
Why
A
didn't he
little
send
giggle.
it, actually? He could have just...
That's true.
Yeah.
All right, only 2 more. K-Max does the online left feud.
Is that funny, by the way? Is that funny?
The idea is kind of funny that, like...
You have any clips of your dead mom when you were arguing with her? Do you think that's funny?
Do I have a clip of her?
God, it's a sore spot for him.
You were talking shit to your dead mom. Would you think it was funny if I was to pull that up?
Maybe, depending on the clip. If it was
I
funny.
don't think you'd probably laugh if I was to pull that up and start talking about it. Take money.
I don't
take
have
money.
To sit here and talk about it. I don't think you would think that was too funny.
I feel like I touched a nerve, and I didn't mean
Yes,
to. I
100%.
Like, there aren't any clips
Hey,
of
I'm just
my...
asking you if
Ultra
I had
triggered.
that clip and I pulled it
If
up
you
right
had
now.
a clip of my mom...
$5 to pull that clip.
$5.
If it was a funny clip, then...
If they pay me $5 and they said, "Hey, Chrissy, here's your dead mom. Here's you talking shit to her." Would you think that's funny?
Well, I've never talked shit to her like...
I'm asking you a direct question.
Such a clip existed.
I need to check something.
If I had talked shit to my
clip
mom...
probably could exist. I think you probably talked a lot of shit to your mom, actually.
Why would you think that?
I mean, I have no reason to not think that. I think everybody probably has some unguarded moments with their family.
Talk shit to her?
Low down for sitting here laughing about that shit to my face. That's what I think.
I can't tell if you're joking or not.
I'm not joking at all. I'm being dead serious.
Well, I also don't know if what that person sent was real or not. I was
Just quickly. Let's have a look. Have a look at how Chrissy did today. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Oh, damn. Jack's bees in the way. No. Very nice. Very nice. Congrats, Chrissy. Congrats.
I think the idea of it is funny.
I'm not joking. I'm being real fucking serious right here live on air.
Okay, what
There's
I
absolutely no way he did not.
the idea
He's not seething about that.
like that a person would tell their mom to like go into the sun, like go out in the summer. Like I was just
Well, I'm telling you, I sat here long enough for your faggot super chats is what I'm telling you. And I didn't appreciate that last one. I didn't appreciate your fucking faggot laughter. And I'm really about
Language, Ralph.
What else do you have for me?
okay. I wasn't trying to like make you upset. I don't know. I feel like we
It's funny. Chrissy's genuinely shocked that he's
No, there's no
upset.
confusion.
I can't imagine going unprepared into this interview.
okay. Like
Pretty much everybody expected
I think
this
you're taking what
result.
I said like a little too seriously.
Well, that's your opinion. I don't think so. I think that
You have to appreciate how amazing it is
comedy routine.
that
I'm telling you,
Ralph has his own Cuck Murphy moment.
And you got personal one too many times, and I'm telling you, fuck you. That's what I'm saying live on air.
I got personal?
Yeah.
How
Me-
did I get personal?
Yeah, you. Fucker.
You brought up a super
I get
chat
personal? I don't know
from someone else who got personal.
Right. So how dare you fucking say some shit like that?
What is it with these guys who can't separate
a super chat.
the super chat
You're being
from the person reading it?
I don't give a fuck.
Like, especially,
I don't give a
fuck.
boyfriend. Get the fuck out of here. You're not.
So,
Shut the fuck up.
not to stand for Jack Murphy.
What a charmer.
He didn't do live shows. Like, the only live stuff he did was really, like, he had his podcast, but he didn't do that live to YouTube. So the only live stuff was You Are Here, which we know how that ended.
I would have done it right away.
And
Like, I literally,
really, his
you and I are cool,
his
we're having a conversation.
fortnightly spot on Timcast.
That you maybe
So he hadn't been exposed to this kind of trolling. People troll Ralph day in, day out. How the fuck does this man have such a short fuse?
So people can just take it how they want.
Like, I actually do have a story. So I did a roast battle with a girl, and it was after my mom got diagnosed with cancer, and she had this joke. Of course, it's a roast battle. Like, all bets are off. People can say whatever they want. And this girl, Allison, she made a joke about my mom. It was like an open thing. Everyone knew she had like brain cancer, and she had
There's
this
lines in
joke
most,
where I don't remember exactly, but the
Good
punchline
comedian
was,
knows what the line is.
the
Doesn't.
the tumor your
you know,
mom
run
made in her
past it.
head was still like
They
the
run up
best
to
thing
it.
to ever come out of her body. Like it was, she was trying to compare like giving birth to me and this whatever. And in the moment, I was like, man, that's fucking low, and it made me feel horrible. But immediately the audience like wasn't having it and didn't laugh, and that was the thing that in the moment made me feel better. So if that is how I made you feel just now, I'm sorry. Like I literally
You
was just
see, I
reading
don't feel bad. I don't like you people. That's the thing. I don't like
You people.
these motherfuckers. Like,
What the fuck?
take all the pot shots you want.
Who is he fucking talking about? Is he talking about the chat?
Like you.
Or is he talking about Chrissy? Or is he including Chrissy in the chat? Or is he talking about the Simcast girls? Like,
Fucking super chats and all this shit talk. I can tell you that I don't fucking like you. I don't like these motherfuckers in the audience. And if they don't like me, god damn it, I fucking hate you. That's the fucking truth. And so I don't.
so if they don't like you,
That's the thing. I'm beyond
you
giving a
fucking
fuck.
hate them.
Like, take whatever.
That's
fucking
ridiculous.
pot
Like,
shots you
what a
want,
fucking way to
work
live.
Whatever $5 Judas super chat in that you want.
Oh my
And I'm gonna tell you,
God, what a
fucking stick it.
fucking
That's what I
absolute pussy,
fucking
man.
think.
Like,
So again, whatever. Like, don't like it. Just clip it out. I want you to clip it. I know this is
we
gonna be
are.
clipped. I'm not hiding from anybody. I came on this show and it was right up to a certain degree. Yeah, no problem. You chuckling about my dead mom? Fuck you, bitch. That's what
Ethan, I'm not laughing. My mom is dead too. Why would I?
I'm not laughing.
If you genuinely,
and again, this is like Ricada and laughing over the fart.
That's what I fucking think.
Like, he can't handle. He can't handle
triggered right now because
people who he sees as friends. Like,
you're triggered because you're continuing to be mad after I.
the same with Daddy Jim.
Honestly, I wasn't trying to like.
Can't
make fun of
handle
your mom. My mom
people
did too.
he
I literally just
sees
told you a story from a
as
roast
friends.
battle where something like her
Laughing at him. Like, that is the ultimate trigger for this
know
man.
that
Like,
there was a
it is.
misunderstanding. When I saw you react,
You were laughing and chuckling like what you thought that was no big deal.
because I didn't think it was real. I thought it was just like, I mean, how many of
At this point, there's been so many like bullshit super chats that
Tweet about that.
Ralph's like fucking just said, "Oh no, that's just a law they make up in their heads." Of course, Chrissy doesn't think this stuff's real. Doesn't think he bloody made his mum have to walk to dialysis after he passed out on the couch. Like, Jesus.
Ethan, I wasn't laughing.
Did I
Mom
just imagine that? That didn't happen.
Glasses off.
Okay. Well, you know what? Go back and rerun the tape. I don't give a fuck. I'm beyond
Just-
giving a fuck.
Does Ralph think we still use tapes? Does Ralph still use tapes?
And I'm trying because I don't want you.
If Ralph uses tapes, Gator has a lot to answer for.
Listen to anybody listening to me now.
And it also makes a lot of sense.
Back and rerun it. Of
Do you-
course, you
Ethan,
can
do
take
you
qualms
really
with how
think-
I reacted after, but go back and listen
Ethan,
to.
can I honestly ask a question? Do you think I am someone, from what you know about me, that would genuinely laugh at your mom being dead and mean it wholeheartedly in a shitty way?
This is someone Ralph admits earlier in the show is a friend, has known him for 2 years, even admits that.
I think you were obviously sitting
Like,
here and chuckle fuck to a super chat, which is what you just did.
And again, it goes back to the friends thing. If he's your friend
Of them in a row.
and you slight him in the slightest way or subject him to ridicule, that's it. Fucking nuke.
Mom is sitting here
But
laughing
I'm not
about it.
taking shots at
Okay,
your
well,
mom.
that's what I fucking heard. So, again, whatever. Like,
And I don't know if it's gotten worse since Portugal,
clip this out. All these faggots. I hope
but it feels like it has.
fucking eat off it for a month. I can tell you what, I'll be right back at it tomorrow just doing my regular show. Because I don't give a fuck.
Ethan, I didn't have you on to clip you up and make you look away. I honestly just wanted you on to talk, and I
And
feel
yet,
the same way when I did.
Look, I believe Chrissy.
feel like your
I believe Chrissy is as surprised
I don't understand like
as any other normie.
why
I think
there are
Chrissy's
all these beats
Chrissy
and
really
I
is just a
wanted to go
normie.
through it. And yeah, it was a lot of super
Now you
chats, so I
fucking
can understand.
understand, I think.
But anybody who follows Ethan Ralph knew this was going to happen. Knew it with a certainty.
I don't know. I just
Let that stand, I guess, is my word.
I guess
if
it's
you
my
really want me
word.
to Go into it. I mean, I stand by everything I said.
Okay.
Dude, he could have so easily walked this back. Look like, oh, you, man, you know, this is my mom. My mom died a year ago. Today, you know, I'm still handling. Like, he could have humanized himself.
Okay. Because it seems like it does. Because you're upset.
Like,
It doesn't matter now, regardless.
Okay.
And he started really well. Like, I watched this whole thing. This is like, he started as a normal person.
I think you were sitting here reading Shucklefuck super chats at me, and I didn't.
And the first batch of super chats, he was fine.
Don't take that kindly.
And I thought, wow, okay, maybe he's developed a thicker skin. But
And I didn't laugh. I laughed because
man, if you mention the pill stream, holy shit.
No. You laughed.
Of course, I laughed, but it's not because I was trying to be malicious.
He can't separate. He can't add context to it in his head.
Knew was dead.
You laughed at this thing.
Like a real story.
You knew she was dead. Are you telling me I'm lying?
Okay, but I don't remember when she died. I don't have like.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess we've only known each other 2 fucking
But
years.
Ethan, I didn't know that what was.
How many? Now think about how many people you've known for 2 years who have deceased parents.
Yeah, but
What day did they die?
You don't have any answer for it.
Like, that's some narcissistic bullshit. This day is very important to me, therefore it is important to everybody.
Well,
it's not about the
knowledge right here.
Oh,
what else
God.
do you want me to say? Like, I don't know.
Nothing. I just want you to understand me. That's all. Because I'm trying to understand you.
Well,
Like, Chrissy's really fucking like.
Like,
Chrissy really is a nice person.
I think I am.
She's really trying hard
Like, I don't know. I think
to like mend this fence and fix this this perceived offense, but she doesn't understand that you can't. You can't.
I didn't know that what was written in the chat was true or not.
You can't talk the rage piggy down. You just have to let him rage his way out.
Every fucking time. I don't give a fuck who you are or what fucking show you're on or who the fuck you work for.
Now, Chrissy hasn't mentioned Compound Media at all. Like,
I just feel like this is not.
this just goes to Ralph's
Is not actually
inadequacies.
It's just legit. Like, why would I? What? Somebody's gonna talk to me like that?
If you're friends with Ralph and are more successful, fucking run.
I don't know. I think people make
Because
fun of my
you're
job
next.
all the time, and I don't like take it personally.
Well, I
But
do. That's the difference between me and you. I take it personally.
okay, I was not trying to make fun of your mom.
God, he is the biggest lol cow in the world.
Okay. Okay.
I don't think you went out of your way to do that personally. No. I
Okay.
think that you willingly played into that. And there were several other super chats about my mother before that, actually, and about my personal life and about everything else. And I'd already sat here for an hour, actually, listening to that bullshit. So I want that to also
If you're watching.
to the record. I doubt it.
I can understand like it was getting to be a lot, and you're like it's a lot of the same types of comments. I can understand how that's annoying.
Oh, believe me, as a viewer, it was annoying.
I don't think you can really.
Usually chats
What do you mean?
a higher level when it comes to trolling, but the trolling of this chat was fucking
Well, yeah, of course. I mean,
C-tier trolling.
I would never understand what it's like to be you, but I can understand being asked about the same.
And I think that comes from the number of viewers Chrissy had.
Can you understand somebody?
Because this isn't like Chrissy records her podcast live and then privates it.
With their $5 super chats, can you imagine something like that?
Yeah.
Like, this isn't Simcast. This is just her way of recording
I'm
it.
telling you a story of how I did a roast and a girl made fun of my mom being dead.
With a super chat while they've been sitting there for like an hour, like I don't really think so. But
He sat there. He sat there and watched every single super chat. Come in, read it, and seethed. He sat there and just seethed on it.
trying to pull a Jack Murphy.
And in his head, you know, he's sitting there going, if that bitch reads this,
You're upset with me, and I did not mean to upset you. That's all I can say.
It's fine.
like,
we'll both live. We'll both get through this. I'm sure. We'll prosper.
but you won't, will you, Ralph? You'll fucking lose your mind.
Some other super chats, and a lot of them are
Sitting
shitting on you.
Let's not do
One.
super chats.
No more super chats, Frank.
Any other super chats? No other super chats.
Why is
No more super chats.
why is Frank represented by
Frank, no other super chats.
No more super
by like a
chats.
set of drawers?
Frank, appreciate it.
Okay. Ethan, where can people follow you if they're not already following
At
you?
the Ralph Retort, Twitter, t.me/the.
And again, his Twitter account is the most important thing to him because it gives him legitimacy. That blue check mark is the most important thing he has. And if you want to follow the Ralph, go to ragepiggy.com.
Really nice things about
That's ragepiggy.com.
No, and that's why I don't want there to be a misunderstanding. That's why I'm like, I don't want to let you go. I don't want you to go to bed angry.
That's the business.
Dude, sorry, Chrissy, he goes to bed angry every single day.
Complimentary things about you too. I meant all those things.
And I meant all those things
Stay on the
too.
hustle. Stay on the hustle. Just keep killing it. That's all I
Okay.
can say.
All right.
Thank
I
you.
feel like we're better.
It is what it is. Thank you,
All right.
Christy.
Thank
Frank,
you, Ethan.
fuck you, bitch.
Oh, come on. All right.
At least he said thank you.
You do have a lot of super chats to still go.
I don't understand. Dude, I don't know. I feel like I really like stepped in it. I did not mean. I mean, there's no way. I think it was a trigger. I don't think that he genuinely thought I was making fun of his mom.
No, of course not.
I don't know if that was a make or he was looking for something to flip out over.
Oh,
I think, yeah, Frank's right. He was looking for something to flip out over. He was looking to flip out, and it's all because of Simcast the other day. This isn't directed at Chrissy. This entire thing was directed at the other ladies on Simcast.
It's
straightforward, like straight up.
You weren't laughing at the fact that his mom was dead. It was the premise
No.
that seemed.
Yes.
I think everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Everybody gets it. That's why I didn't want to just let it
Making
go.
your
Like,
mum
please understand. It is
walk
not
in the heat to dialysis. If you've never heard that
I
before,
also have a dead mom.
that's pretty funny. And of course, I got blocked by Ethan Ralph in what has to be record time. So the memes were great though. But anyway, I'm glad Chrissy made a couple of grand. I hope she can spin it off into some more. And this is safe, but the gunt is still coping and seething. So I should get rid of the Murphy beard because it doesn't make sense now. So yeah, make sure you subscribe, comment, whatever. I'll probably clip this bit out. So in the meantime, I'm probably going to go to bed. So
why are you gay?
Good night, everybody.